The night air in Miami was warm, carrying the scent of salt water and streetlights reflecting off Biscayne Bay. Marie and Daniel sat on the terrace, reviewing the documents Lena had left. Each page detailed subtle observations, noting patterns in their routines, interactions, and social appearances. Every move they had made was cataloged by someone, an unseen audience tracking desire, trust, and secrecy. A sudden buzz from the intercom made them jump. A distorted voice spoke. "Your secret won't stay hidden for long. Watch the next social circle carefully." Marie's heart skipped a beat, and Daniel's jaw tightened. "They're escalating," he whispered. Marie nodded, her mind racing. Miami had moved from subtle observation to direct threats. Inside the mansion, they intensified security measures. Cameras were repositioned, entrances checked, and staff given discreet instructions. Daniel's youthful energy and analytical mind complemented Marie's experience and intuition, forming a partnership capable of navigating Miami's high-stakes social web. "We can't be predictable," Daniel said firmly. "Every move must count." Later, they received another envelope, slipped under the door with surgical precision. Inside were photos from a party they had attended weeks ago, moments of intimacy subtly captured, an indication that Miami's observers had access to both private and public spaces. Marie's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure. "They want fear," she said softly. "We give them strategy instead." Daniel traced the locations where the photos were taken, noticing patterns that suggested insider knowledge. "Someone's been very close," he muttered. Marie's eyes met his, sharing a silent agreement. Trust and discretion were no longer optional. They were survival tools. Miami's allure now carried the weight of danger in every glance, whisper, and observation. That evening, Lena returned, her smile calm yet calculating. "I see you've noticed," she said, referring to the photographs. Marie kept her voice steady. "We are aware. Now, what is it that you want?" Lena's gaze flicked to Daniel, assessing his reactions. "Observation is one thing," she said, "but exposure changes everything. Miami thrives on subtle threats, and I'm here to guide you through them if you choose to follow." Marie's composure did not falter. She gestured to Daniel, standing slightly forward. "We navigate this together," she said. "Trust and desire aren't yours to control. And neither is our privacy." Daniel's eyes met Lena's, a quiet warning embedded in his steady gaze. Lena nodded subtly, acknowledging their strength and cohesion. Later that night, as the city glittered below, Marie and Daniel sat on the terrace, hands intertwined. Miami's watchful eyes, secret observers, and whispered threats loomed like shadows over their private moments. Yet the shared experience, the intimacy, and the trust between them had never felt stronger. The challenge now was not just desire or secrecy. It was surviving the city without compromising their connection. Marie exhaled slowly, her eyes reflecting both determination and affection. "Miami tests everything," she whispered. "Trust, desire, strategy, even courage. And yet it cannot control what we share." Daniel nodded, brushing a soft kiss against her temple. "Then we keep choosing each other," he said. In that moment, they realized that their bond was not only unbreakable, it was a force capable of resisting the city's scrutiny, temptation, and manipulation. The sun had just begun to dip below the horizon, painting Miami in fiery oranges and purples. Marie and Daniel were in the mansion, reviewing the latest envelope Lena had left on their terrace. Inside were images not only from public outings but also moments from inside their own mansion, a silent indication that someone had infiltrated their private spaces. The city had moved from observation to intrusion, and the stakes had never been higher. Daniel traced the photographs carefully, noting every detail. Each image was perfectly timed, showing intimate moments of trust between him and Marie. "They're watching us in places we thought were safe," he muttered. Marie's lips pressed together, her mind racing. "Then it's not just vigilance we need," she replied softly. "It's strategy and discretion and more trust than ever before." A soft chime from the terrace door announced a visitor. Marie's pulse quickened. Daniel moved instinctively to intercept anyone entering, his protective instincts now fully sharpened. Lena stepped in, her presence calm but deliberate. In her hands was a small device, sleek and black. "Consider this a test," she said, placing it on the table. Marie and Daniel exchanged a glance, curiosity mixed with caution. The device was a high-tech recorder, capable of capturing conversations in the room. Lena's gaze was steady. "This is a silent test," she explained. "Miami's elite want to know how you handle trust and temptation when your words are recorded. Everything is observed." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Lena's smile was faint but pointed. "Refusal is also noted. The city interprets silence or defiance as weakness or strategy. It depends on perspective." Marie's mind raced, considering the implications. They could leave, ignore the test, or comply carefully. But she understood Lena's point. Miami thrived on observation, subtle manipulation, and pressure. Their choices would reveal not just desire or composure, but their bond, trust, and resilience under scrutiny. "Then we take the test," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. Daniel nodded, appreciating her courage and decisiveness. They engaged in casual conversation, discussing Miami's art scene, recent city developments, and personal anecdotes, all under the silent gaze of the recorder. Every laugh, pause, and glance was deliberate, balancing natural charm with the need for discretion. It was a careful dance, a test of how trust and desire could remain authentic even under invisible observation. As the evening progressed, Lena observed silently, occasionally nodding or stepping back to adjust her presence. The mansion, once a private sanctuary, had become a stage where every gesture mattered. Yet Marie and Daniel's connection deepened. They relied on each other for strength, guidance, and subtle reassurance. Each touch, glance, or word reinforced their bond in the face of a city determined to dissect it. Finally, Lena collected the device and offered a small nod. "You passed the silent test," she said softly. "Discretion, trust, and desire all handled with elegance." Marie allowed herself a small, relieved smile, her hand brushing Daniel's. The city had tested them again, and they had emerged not only unexposed but stronger and more united. Later, on the terrace under a star-filled Miami sky, Marie and Daniel reflected on the test. "Every challenge strengthens us," Daniel whispered, holding her hand tightly. Marie nodded, eyes glinting with pride and desire. "Miami may watch, tempt, and intrude," she said softly, "but together, we define what is ours." The city sparkled below them, a reminder of both danger and desire, but their bond had become a shield stronger than any scrutiny. The silent test was over, but Miami had not yet revealed its next challenge, a temptation designed to blur desire, secrecy, and trust like never before. The next evening, the mansion shimmered under soft lighting, casting golden reflections across polished marble floors. Marie and Daniel had barely settled into their private sanctuary when another envelope appeared, this time slid beneath the front door. Lena's handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was an invitation to an exclusive Miami masquerade, a night designed to test discretion, desire, and trust simultaneously. Marie held the envelope delicately. "A masquerade," she murmured, her voice carrying both intrigue and caution. Daniel ran his hand over hers, a silent affirmation of partnership. "This isn't just a party," he said. "It's another test of patience, desire, and secrecy." Marie nodded, understanding immediately. Miami's social machinery thrived on subtle challenges disguised as luxury and indulgence. At the masquerade, Miami's elite glittered behind ornate masks, the ballroom alive with soft music, laughter, and whispered conversations. The lighting was dim yet strategic, highlighting faces while casting others in shadow. Marie's elegance and Daniel's youthful confidence immediately drew attention, but their connection was unmistakable, a bold contrast to the city's subtle intrigue. Lena, ever present, watched from a discreet corner. She whispered to another attendee, signaling subtle observation. The couple is strong, she said softly. But tonight, Miami's game begins. Marie sensed the tension, glancing at Daniel. We move together, she whispered. Daniel's nod was firm, their bond providing both courage and strategy in this delicate dance of observation and temptation. Throughout the evening, invitations to private dances and discreet conversations arrived, some genuine, others provocations designed to test their composure. Every glance, every brush of a hand, every whispered word was a potential probe. Marie and Daniel navigated the room with subtle grace, accepting polite engagements without losing focus or connection. At one point, a young socialite approached Marie, offering a private discussion about Miami's elite circles. Her tone was friendly, yet the underlying implication was clear. The city encouraged temptation as a tool of influence. Daniel subtly stepped closer, a protective presence, without undermining Marie's autonomy. Their synchronization was seamless, a balance of desire, trust, and vigilance. As the night progressed, a private room within the mansion's ballroom was opened exclusively for selected guests. Marie and Daniel were invited, the space illuminated by warm candlelight and soft music. Inside, the tension of exposure, desire, and social strategy intensified. Every detail, from their gestures to the way they spoke, was a potential test of their bond and composure. In this intimate setting, Marie and Daniel shared quiet moments of connection, reinforcing trust and desire. They knew that any misstep could be noted, photographed, or used as leverage by Miami's observers. Yet, their subtle touches, glances, and whispered words created a private sanctuary amid public scrutiny, a bold defiance of the city's calculated temptations. Finally, Lena approached once more, a faint smile playing on her lips. Consider this phase complete, she said softly. You've demonstrated that desire and trust can coexist under scrutiny, and that secrecy can be maintained even when temptation is unavoidable. Marie allowed herself a small, victorious smile, leaning toward Daniel. Miami had attempted to manipulate desire, but their bond had proven resilient. As the masquerade ended, Marie and Daniel returned to the mansion terrace. The city sparkled below, alive with lights and the promise of new challenges. Every test strengthens us, Daniel said, holding her hand. Marie nodded, her eyes glinting with both pride and desire. Miami may tempt, observe, and intrude, she said softly, but together, we navigate it all. The temptation game was over, but Miami's ultimate challenge was yet to come, a test that would demand absolute trust, unshakable desire, and secrecy beyond measure. The mansion was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of evening lights. Marie and Daniel returned from the masquerade, their hands intertwined, hearts still racing from the evening's subtle tests. But tonight, a new challenge awaited, a final trial designed by Miami's observers to measure the limits of trust, desire, and secrecy. The envelope on the table bore only 3 words: follow the instructions. Inside the envelope was a map of a secluded Miami location, an abandoned rooftop garden atop a high-rise overlooking Biscayne Bay. The instructions were simple: arrive together, maintain discretion, and follow every direction carefully. Marie's pulse quickened. This isn't just a test of presence, she whispered. It's a test of us, our trust and composure under scrutiny. Daniel squeezed her hand. Then we face it together, he said firmly. The journey to the rooftop was quiet, filled with anticipation. Miami's night lights shimmered below them, creating a web of potential observers. Marie and Daniel moved deliberately, aware that any misstep could be noticed and analyzed. Their bond was the compass guiding them through uncertainty and subtle danger, a mixture of desire, trust, and resilience that had been forged through weeks of tests. Arriving at the rooftop garden, they found it transformed. Soft lanterns swayed in the wind, fragrant flowers lined the edges, and the city stretched endlessly below, a breathtaking backdrop. A note on a pedestal instructed them to face each other and speak only truths about their desires, fears, and secrets, all while being observed by hidden cameras. The test was psychological, intimate, and relentless. Marie's eyes softened as she gazed at Daniel. "This is more than trust," she said quietly. "It's about revealing our hearts under the city's gaze." Daniel nodded, understanding the gravity. He took both her hands in his. "Then let's be honest entirely," he whispered. They began to speak, revealing hopes, fears, and the depth of their desire for each other. Every word measured, yet sincere, a dance between vulnerability and courage. As they shared, the hidden cameras captured every nuance, the flicker of Marie's smile, the protective touch of Daniel's hand, the quiet laughter that broke tension. The rooftop became a microcosm where desire, trust, and secrecy merged, a private universe amidst Miami's vast, observing cityscape. Finally, the note instructed them to perform a simple, symbolic gesture, a shared toast with glasses of champagne placed on a small table between them. It was a ceremonial conclusion, symbolizing unity, trust, and the ability to navigate desire and secrecy together. They raised their glasses, the city lights reflecting off the crystal, a testament to both resilience and intimacy. Lena appeared silently from the shadows, observing their composure. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, acknowledging their success. "You've passed the ultimate test," she said softly. "Trust, desire, secrecy. They all coexist in your bond. Miami can watch, tempt, and intrude, but it cannot control what is genuine." Marie allowed herself a rare, victorious smile. Daniel kissed her hand, their connection stronger than ever. As they looked out over Miami's sprawling lights, the city seemed to settle around them, a silent acknowledgement of their triumph. Every challenge, the masquerades, the tests, the temptations, and exposures, had strengthened their partnership. The city's allure, danger, and intrigue remained, but within the fortress of their trust, desire, and secrecy, Marie and Daniel had found not only victory but freedom. Marie and Daniel conquered desire, secrecy, and trust in the heart of Miami. But now the city's next whisper awaits. What would you do if your deepest desires were tested under the world's gaze? Comment your choice and follow their journey as the story continues, because in Miami, temptation never truly ends. The morning after the rooftop test, Miami awoke in hues of gold and turquoise. Marie and Daniel sat on the terrace, drinking coffee, savoring the calm before the next storm. But the city never slept, not truly. Even as they shared quiet laughter, the faint hum of distant traffic and whispers of Miami's elite reminded them that attention lingered. Their victory had been noted, their bond admired, envied, and watched. A sleek black SUV pulled up at the gate, its presence deliberate, unassuming. From it stepped an elegant woman in her 40s, sharply dressed with an air of authority. She introduced herself as Camila, an investigative journalist with Miami's top social magazine. "I've been following the stories," she said, her tone a mix of curiosity and intrigue. "Your lives, your choices, your companionship. Miami wants to know how it all began." Marie's eyes narrowed, sensing the potential risk. "Stories of power," she said carefully, "but our truth isn't for everyone." Daniel remained close, a protective presence, reading Camila's intentions. "We'll share what's necessary," he added firmly, "but privacy is non-negotiable." Camila smiled faintly, acknowledging their stance, while subtly pressing for details. Camila requested a private interview in the mansion sunroom, citing discretion. Marie and Daniel agreed, knowing that diplomacy sometimes required measured engagement. Inside, sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the luxurious interior. The soft hum of Miami outside created a quiet cocoon where words could be exchanged carefully, truth blended with strategy. The conversation began lightly, backgrounds, Miami life, mutual acquaintances. But Camila's questions subtly shifted toward the rooftop test, the masquerades, and the delicate bond between Marie and Daniel. Marie responded with elegance and poise, revealing nothing but framing experiences in a way that emphasized personal growth and companionship rather than desire. Daniel added context strategically, balancing transparency with privacy. "Miami has its tests," he said casually, "and Sometimes people find strength in unlikely partnerships. Marie smiled at him, a silent thank you. Their ability to communicate without exposing vulnerability impressed Camila, who began to shift her approach, less invasive, more observant. After nearly an hour, Camila leaned back, nodding approvingly. You navigate trust and secrecy exceptionally, she said. Miami has many eyes, many whispers, yet you maintain control over your narrative. Marie's posture remained regal. Daniel's calm demeanor reinforced the message. They had turned curiosity into a demonstration of control, leaving observers admiring without intruding. Once Camila departed, Marie and Daniel reflected on the encounter. Even after victory, Marie said softly, Miami tests in shadows, curiosity, and questions. Daniel nodded, brushing her hand with his thumb. Then we remain vigilant, he said. Our bond is our shield. No one can pierce it without our consent. As night approached, the mansion lights glimmered over Biscayne Bay, and the city hummed with life below. Marie and Daniel sat together, ready for whatever next challenge Miami's intrigue might bring. Victory was never final in a city built on observation, temptation, and influence, but together, they had the resilience, trust, and desire to navigate anything. Even curiosity can be dangerous in Miami. And soon, someone closer than an observer would test their trust and desire in ways they never expected. A week after the interview with Camila, Miami's sun rose lazily over Biscayne Bay. Marie and Daniel were in the mansion courtyard, enjoying the morning breeze and the scent of jasmine and tropical flowers. Their conversation was light, laughter punctuating quiet moments of reflection. Yet beneath the calm, an undercurrent of tension persisted. The city's eyes never truly left them, and the next challenge could arrive at any moment. A knock at the door startled them. Marie rose, curiosity mixed with caution. At the threshold stood a familiar face, Clara, Marie's niece, elegantly dressed and radiating warmth. But there was a glint of mischief in her eyes, an energy that suggested she had been sent not merely to visit, but to observe and test. Aunt Marie, Clara said softly, I wanted to see you and meet Daniel properly. Marie smiled, embracing Clara gently. Daniel stepped forward, offering a handshake that quickly became a subtle protective gesture, placing him slightly between Marie and her niece. It's good to see you, Marie said, but her mind raced. Clara's visit was unexpected, and given Miami's recent tests, timing was suspect. As Clara settled in the living room, she brought up memories, stories of Marie's younger years, and subtle questions about Daniel. He seems different from anyone you've ever known, she said casually, her tone light but probing. Marie's pulse quickened. Clara wasn't a professional observer like Lena or Camila, but her presence, familiarity, and curiosity made her a more intimate test. Daniel engaged with Clara politely, answering questions with charm while maintaining boundaries. Marie noticed the interplay, the careful dance of transparency and discretion. Clara's questions seemed innocent, but every detail she observed could be interpreted, shared, or reported. Miami's game had expanded from strangers and journalists to family, a more delicate arena of trust and exposure. Marie decided to address the subtle tension directly. Clara, she said softly, I know Miami can be curious. Every word and glance might carry unintended meaning. Clara laughed lightly, a spark of understanding in her eyes. I know, Aunt Marie. But I'm here because I trust you, and I want to understand him too. Marie exhaled, realizing that this test would demand honesty, composure, and careful navigation of desire and secrecy. As the afternoon progressed, Clara suggested a game. Simple questions and answers designed to reveal personality, preferences, and boundaries. Every question she asked carried subtext, each answer a potential measure of trust. Marie and Daniel navigated carefully, responding truthfully, without compromising intimacy or privacy. The challenge was subtle but profound. Maintain authenticity while protecting the fragile, intimate bond they shared. By evening, Clara's visit had revealed small insights without exposing vulnerability. She excused herself, leaving behind a quiet acknowledgement of respect and curiosity. Marie and Daniel exhaled together, the weight of the day sinking in. "Even those we trust can test us," Marie said softly, leaning against Daniel. "And yet, our bond remains our shield." On the terrace that night, Miami's skylines sparkled below. They reflected on the subtle test, a reminder that challenges could come from the closest corners of life, where trust, desire, and secrecy intersected with intimacy and vulnerability. "We've passed yet another test," Daniel said quietly, brushing her hair back. Marie nodded, her eyes glinting with affection and pride. "Miami may watch, tempt, and intrude, but we navigate it together, always." A trusted presence had tested their bond, but Miami's challenges were far from over. The city had one more twist waiting, where exposure, temptation, and desire would collide like never before. The night was sultry, with the faint hum of traffic and the distant sounds of waves lapping Biscayne Bay. Marie and Daniel had returned to their mansion after Clara's visit, both relieved yet aware that the city had more tests in store. As they settled into the living room, another envelope appeared on the table, a hallmark of Lena's meticulous orchestration. Its contents were brief: an invitation to a private dinner at an upscale Miami penthouse, hosted by an anonymous socialite. Marie's brow furrowed. A private dinner, unknown host. "This is clearly a test of discretion and composure," she said softly. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on hers. "And perhaps a test of desire," he added, eyes glinting with mischief and understanding. Marie smiled faintly. Miami's games were never straightforward. They always came wrapped in elegance, temptation, and risk. Arriving at the penthouse, they were greeted by opulent decor, soft candlelight, plush furniture, and a terrace overlooking the glittering city. The host was absent, leaving only notes and subtle instructions. Each step, each seating arrangement, and each dish served was carefully curated to encourage interaction, subtle intimacy, and observation. Marie's instincts sharpened immediately. They were instructed to sit side by side, facing other guests, young professionals, socialites, and influential figures, each masked and elegant. Every gesture, how they interacted, how closely they sat, how they responded to casual touches, was a measure. Miami's elite, it seemed, had a fascination with the interplay of desire, trust, and secrecy in those who dared to defy age and expectation. Throughout the dinner, subtle provocations appeared: a brush of a hand, a question about private moments, lingering glances. Daniel responded with controlled charm, his hand occasionally brushing against Marie's under the table in gestures of reassurance and intimacy. Marie's responses were measured: soft smiles, gentle touches, confident eye contact, all signaling desire and trust without compromise. Halfway through the dinner, a dessert was served in a small, intimate tray meant for just the two of them. It was a test of privacy and composure. Could they maintain subtle connection without drawing attention? Marie reached for the same chocolate as Daniel, their fingers brushing. The city's eyes may have been watching, but their bond was impervious, silent affirmation of trust and desire. By the evening's end, Lena appeared discreetly from a corner, her expression unreadable. She had orchestrated the scenario, testing boundaries while allowing freedom of choice. "You've navigated the temptation well," she said softly. "Desire and discretion coexist in your bond, even under scrutiny. Miami watches, but it cannot manipulate what is genuine." Marie exhaled, a quiet victory passing through her eyes, mirrored by Daniel's protective, affectionate gaze. As they stepped onto the penthouse terrace, Miami's skylines sparkled endlessly below. The night air was warm, carrying the scent of ocean and distant nightlife. Marie leaned against Daniel, their hands intertwined. "The city may tempt and observe endlessly," she said softly, "but we remain stronger than its challenges." Daniel kissed her hand, eyes reflecting the brilliance of the city and the depth of their connection. The temptation was navigated, the test survived, but Miami had another layer waiting, one that would challenge the very essence of trust and desire in ways neither of them could anticipate. The next morning, Miami's light spilled across the mansion terrace in warm golds. Marie and Daniel were reviewing plans for a quiet day, hoping for respite after the penthouse dinner. But the city had no intention of granting rest. A soft ping from Daniel's phone signaled a new message, an anonymous location pin with a simple instruction: meet where the city watches silently. Marie raised an eyebrow, sensing danger wrapped in intrigue. "Another test," she said softly. Daniel's protective hand brushed hers. "We face it together," he whispered. The city was a labyrinth of temptation, observation, and hidden challenges. They had navigated so many before, yet this one carried an unfamiliar weight. Someone was watching them without their knowledge. The pin led them to an upscale Miami rooftop overlooking the bustling streets below. There were no guests, no hosts, just the wind, the city lights, and a single, perfectly positioned chair. On it rested a note: sit. Speak your truth without hesitation. You are observed, but only your authenticity will protect you. Marie's heart raced. The instructions were minimal, yet heavy with implication. They approached the chair together. Daniel nodded to Marie. "This is about honesty," he said softly. Marie took a deep breath, recognizing that their bond would be scrutinized in ways that tests before had only hinted at. Sitting, they faced the horizon, speaking aloud about fears, desires, and regrets, not just to each other, but to an unseen audience whose eyes might be everywhere. Every word, every gesture, was amplified in significance. The wind stirred Marie's hair. Daniel's hand brushed her subtly. They were aware of the invisible observer's presence, yet they maintained composure and intimacy. The city below buzzed, unaware of the drama unfolding above, a silent witness to vulnerability and trust in their rawest form. Minutes felt like hours as they revealed truths about their pasts, their desires, and the quiet longing that had brought them together. Daniel's voice was steady, grounding Marie as she spoke. Her words, measured but vulnerable, were both shield and revelation, trusting in him while defying the invisible scrutiny of Miami's eyes. Finally, a note was delivered via drone, landing silently near their feet. It read, "You have passed. Authenticity is your shield, and desire your bond. Miami watches, but it cannot pierce what is real." Marie exhaled, relief washing over her as Daniel pulled her into a gentle embrace. The city might tempt, observe, and manipulate, but their connection was untouchable, forged through every test, every risk, every intimate challenge. As the night deepened, they stood at the edge of the rooftop, holding hands, reflecting on the test. "Every challenge brings us closer," Marie said softly. Daniel kissed her hand, eyes glinting with pride and affection. "And every observer only confirms what we already know. Our bond is unbreakable." Miami's lights sparkled below, alive with possibilities and hidden eyes, yet they had proven, again, that desire and trust could survive scrutiny. The hidden observer had tested their authenticity, but Miami's ultimate challenge was looming, a moment where desire, secrecy, and exposure would converge in ways neither could anticipate. The night was heavy with humidity and anticipation. Marie and Daniel arrived at an exclusive Miami rooftop bar, one known only to the city's most influential. The space overlooked Biscayne Bay, the skyline alive with glittering lights. A single elevator door opened to reveal a note resting on a small table. "Tonight, desire, secrecy, and exposure converge. Navigate carefully." Marie's pulse quickened. Daniel's grip on her hand tightened. They scanned the room. Tables were empty, lights dimmed to focus on a central platform. A velvet rope cordoned off an area where a solitary figure waited, masked, elegant, observing. Lena's unmistakable presence confirmed their suspicion. This was orchestrated, a culmination of all prior tests. Marie inhaled slowly. "This is it," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "We face it together." Instructions appeared on a glowing screen. Interact. Trust. Reveal. Your bond will guide you. Failure results in exposure. The stakes were higher than ever. Every glance, touch, and word would be monitored, recorded, and analyzed. Marie's mind raced. This was no longer about subtlety alone. This was about surviving scrutiny while maintaining desire, trust, and secrecy. They began moving together through the empty tables toward the masked figure. Subtle gestures, touching hands, guiding each other, were amplified by observation. Marie felt the tension of the city, the anticipation of unknown observers, and the weight of every word. Daniel's calm, protective presence grounded her as they navigated the convergence of desire, secrecy, and exposure. The masked figure gestured to a series of challenges, each symbolic, each designed to test trust and composure. First, they were instructed to exchange whispered truths about their desires, each confession designed to tempt and test. Marie spoke softly, measured, revealing longing without vulnerability to manipulation. Daniel mirrored her honesty, reinforcing their connection and mutual protection. Next, a tactile challenge, a velvet ribbon stretched between them, representing temptation and boundaries. They were to navigate it together, crossing without breaking contact. Every stumble could be recorded, analyzed. Marie laughed softly as Daniel guided her hand across the ribbon, their coordinated movements a dance of desire, trust, and playful intimacy. The city's eyes could watch, but could not dictate their connection. Finally, they were instructed to share a silent toast, glasses of champagne placed on a pedestal under dim spotlight. This act symbolized trust, desire, and unity. They clinked glasses, eyes locked, hearts aligned. Every hidden observer, every city eye could witness, yet the intimacy between them remained untouchable, a culmination of weeks of challenges, tests, and subtle temptations. Lena stepped forward, removing her mask. Her expression was unreadable at first, then softened with acknowledgement. "You have passed the convergence," she said softly. "Desire, secrecy, and trust exist in perfect balance between you. Miami can tempt, watch, and intrude, but it cannot penetrate what is authentic." Marie allowed herself a deep breath, leaning slightly into Daniel, who smiled in quiet pride and affection. As the night deepened, Marie and Daniel stood at the rooftop edge, hands intertwined, looking out over Miami. The city was alive with intrigue, lights reflecting both opportunity and challenge. Yet in that moment, they had proven that trust, desire, and secrecy could coexist, even under the most intense scrutiny. Marie whispered softly, "We've faced every test together." Daniel kissed her hand, their bond stronger, resilient, and unbreakable. The convergence had been survived, but Miami's whispers promised another layer of intrigue, one that would test not only trust and desire, but the very limits of secrecy. The following evening, the mansion was unusually quiet. Marie and Daniel had expected a day of rest, but Miami's pulse rarely allowed stillness. A subtle vibration from Daniel's phone interrupted the silence, a live video feed with the caption, "Tonight, the spotlight is invisible. All eyes are on you." Their hearts raced. This was no ordinary test. Lena's orchestration was reaching a new intensity, combining surveillance, desire, and trust into one seamless challenge. Marie exhaled slowly. An invisible spotlight, we won't know who is observing. Daniel's hand rested lightly on hers. "Then we trust each other completely," he whispered. Miami had become a living labyrinth, a place where every gesture and glance could be watched, yet their bond had proven resilient through previous tests. Tonight would push that resilience further. A note slid under the door, instructing them to visit a secluded rooftop lounge. "Sit together. Respond naturally. Let desire and trust guide you. Exposure is invisible." Marie's pulse quickened. Daniel gave a reassuring nod. "We move as one," he said. The instruction was deceptively simple, yet the implications were clear. They would be scrutinized without knowing how or by whom. Arriving at the rooftop lounge, the space was intimate, with low tables and soft candlelight. Other guests were present, but none directly interacted with them. Invisible cameras and observers were hinted at by subtle reflections in mirrors and glass panels. The environment encouraged natural interaction while silently measuring every expression, movement, and glance. Marie felt the weight of scrutiny, yet Daniel's calm presence anchored her. A soft jazz track played in the background. The invisible observers seemed to measure not only their gestures, but their unspoken connection. Daniel gently brushed Marie's hand across the table, a subtle affirmation of intimacy, without drawing attention. Marie's eyes met his, a silent promise that trust and desire would guide them despite the invisible spotlight. At one point, a small plate of desserts was placed before them, 2 forks glinting under soft candlelight. The challenge was clear: share without hesitation, maintain composure, and balance intimacy with discretion. Marie and Daniel leaned in, tasting and feeding each other delicately, each gesture measured, yet genuine, a testament to their bond under invisible scrutiny. Minutes passed, the invisible observers capturing nuances of every glance, touch, and whisper. Marie whispered a playful comment. Daniel responded with a gentle smile, and the subtle dance continued, a mixture of desire, trust, and secrecy under the invisible spotlight. Miami's challenge had shifted from observation to psychological pressure, where vulnerability and composure were tested simultaneously. Finally, a note appeared on the table. You have maintained authenticity under invisible observation. Desire and trust coexist flawlessly. Miami may watch, but your bond remains untouchable. Marie exhaled, leaning into Daniel. Their laughter was quiet, shared only between them, a moment of relief and intimacy amidst the city's constant scrutiny. As they stood at the edge of the lounge, looking over Miami's lights, the invisible spotlight felt distant now. Every test has made us stronger, Marie said softly. Daniel kissed her hand, their bond evident in every gesture, every glance. The city's lights stretched endlessly, alive with potential observers, but for the first time, Marie felt that no test, visible or invisible, could fracture what they shared. The invisible spotlight was survived, but Miami's ultimate game was approaching, a test of desire, secrecy, and exposure that would push them beyond any previous boundary. The mansion felt almost too still that morning, the calm before the storm. Marie and Daniel sipped coffee on the terrace, their hands intertwined, minds alert. A sleek, unmarked black car pulled up at the gate, its tinted windows reflecting the rising sun. A note was placed on the dashboard. Your final game awaits. Follow instructions or risk exposure. Marie's pulse quickened. Daniel's eyes darkened with determination. This is it, he murmured. We've trained for every challenge, but this is different. The instructions led them to a private Miami penthouse, hidden atop a luxury skyscraper. The interior was lavish, soft lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, and a single table at the center with 2 glasses of champagne. A note beside the glasses read, "All eyes are on you. Act naturally. Desire, secrecy, and trust must coexist." Marie's breath hitched. This final test combined everything: the exposure of the invisible spotlight, the intimacy of prior challenges, and the psychological pressure of total observation. A subtle chime echoed, and a hidden screen flickered on. It displayed multiple live feeds, every gesture they had ever made during previous challenges, now replayed in real time. Marie's heart skipped. Lena's voice resonated from hidden speakers. This is your ultimate game. Everything you've built, every connection, every choice will be tested. Only authenticity and trust will protect you. Daniel held her hand firmly. We face it together, no matter what. The first challenge was subtle. They were to pour champagne for each other while speaking candidly about their desires. Every move was scrutinized, the tilt of the glass, the intensity of the gaze, the softness of the words. Marie's voice trembled slightly, then steadied. Daniel matched her sincerity with his own, their connection tangible, unbreakable. The cameras could capture the motion, but not the trust that underpinned each gesture. Next, a series of mirrors revealed projections of their prior tests, moments of vulnerability, moments of intimacy. Marie and Daniel had to navigate a labyrinth of reflection, stepping carefully, touching, whispering, without breaking the rhythm of their bond. Every step was a dance of trust and desire, a test to ensure that no exposure could fracture their connection. The final phase was psychological. Lena's voice prompted them. Speak your fears and desires aloud. The city watches. Transparency is your only shield. Marie looked at Daniel, her eyes glistening. She spoke of loneliness, longing, and the thrill of being truly understood despite the city's scrutiny. Daniel mirrored her honesty, expressing his admiration, desire, and unwavering trust. Their words became a protective shield, authenticity serving as armor against exposure. Finally, Lena appeared, removing her mask, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly, a small smile formed. You have survived Miami's ultimate game, she said softly. Desire, trust, secrecy, they coexist perfectly in you. Every observer, every test, every temptation has proven your bond unbreakable. Marie exhaled, leaning into Daniel. Relief, triumph, and intimacy radiated between them, stronger than ever before. They stepped onto the penthouse terrace, overlooking the sparkling Miami skyline. The city that had watched, tempted, and tested them seemed quieter now, as if acknowledging their triumph. Marie whispered, "Every challenge made us stronger. Every temptation confirmed what we already knew." Daniel kissed her hand, the warmth of their bond undeniable against the cool night air. They had conquered the ultimate game of desire, secrecy, and exposure. Miami's ultimate game had been survived, but whispers in the city promised one final test, one that would challenge love, desire, and legacy in ways neither could foresee. The sun had barely risen over Miami's skyline, casting golden streaks across Biscayne Bay. Marie and Daniel returned to the mansion, their bond stronger than ever from the previous night's ultimate game. Yet a new envelope awaited them on the terrace table, stark against the white marble. Legacy is next. The city watches what endures. Marie's heart skipped. This challenge would test not only trust and desire, but the impact and meaning of her life, what she truly left behind. Daniel picked up the envelope with careful hands. Legacy, he murmured, means this challenge will touch your deepest values. Marie nodded, her mind recalling decades of memories, joys, regrets, and aspirations. Miami's games were no longer solely about desire or secrecy. They were now about shaping and protecting the essence of her life, amplified by observation. The instructions led them to a private art gallery overlooking downtown Miami, a space curated with exquisite paintings, sculptures, and photographs. At the center of the gallery stood a pedestal with a small journal and a pen. A note beside it read, "Document what endures. Share it with only the one you trust completely. The city may watch, but authenticity shapes legacy." Marie's hands trembled slightly, realizing this test was deeply personal, requiring vulnerability and the courage to define her life's meaning. Marie approached the journal, opening it slowly. Each blank page seemed to wait for the weight of her choices, memories, and truths. Daniel remained close, his presence anchoring her. "Write what truly matters," he said softly. "I'll be here, every word witnessed by me, and only me." Marie exhaled, her pen poised, ready to capture a legacy born of decades of love, loss, longing, and fulfillment. She began writing of her childhood, the joys of youth, the love and companionship she had shared with her late husband, and the freedom and self-discovery she had found later in life. Daniel occasionally leaned in, whispering encouragement, subtly touching her hand as a quiet gesture of support. Every stroke of the pen was a mixture of desire, memory, and authenticity, a chronicle of life experienced fully, yet shared selectively. Daniel added his own reflections alongside hers in the journal, documenting the bond they had forged and the way trust and desire had intertwined in their story. Each entry was deliberate, ensuring the legacy captured not only Marie's history but the impact of their connection, the triumph over Miami's tests, and the embodiment of a love that transcended age, temptation, and observation. After what felt like hours, Marie closed the journal. Lena's voice came from a discreet speaker. Legacy documented. Trust, desire, authenticity, all recorded. Miami watches only to confirm what is true. You have passed the ultimate test. Marie and Daniel exchanged a long, silent glance, a mix of relief, triumph, and shared intimacy. They had not only survived the city's trials, but had created a lasting testament of their journey together. As they stepped onto the gallery terrace, overlooking the sparkling Miami skyline, Marie spoke softly. Every challenge was worth it. We've survived desire, secrecy, exposure, and now we've defined what endures. Daniel kissed her hand, the warmth of their bond radiating through the night air. The city, alive with intrigue, had finally witnessed the culmination of a story that could endure beyond whispers, temptations, and tests. Legacy secured, the city's whispers may fade, but Miami has one last game in store, one that will intertwine desire, love, and secrets with the promise of the future. The mansion was quiet that morning, but the air buzzed with anticipation. Marie and Daniel stood on the terrace, gazing at the Miami skyline as sunlight glimmered off Biscayne Bay. A sleek black envelope arrived via courier, bearing only 3 words, "Your final game." Marie's pulse quickened. Daniel's gaze hardened with resolve. "This is it," he whispered. "Every test, every temptation, it all leads here." The instructions led them to a secret penthouse on the edge of downtown Miami, accessible only by a private elevator. Inside, the space was elegantly minimal, a single long table surrounded by high-backed chairs. Candles flickered softly, casting elongated shadows on the walls. On the table lay 3 objects, a sealed letter, a photograph, and a small black box. A note read, "Desire, love, and secrecy converge. Choose wisely." Marie's hands trembled slightly. This challenge would force them to confront every aspect of their journey together. Daniel approached the table first, his fingers brushing over the photograph. It depicted Marie years ago, smiling in the sunshine with her late husband. The memory stirred something deep in her, longing, nostalgia, and a reaffirmation of why she had embarked on this journey of desire and trust. "Everything we do honors the past and the bond we've built," Daniel whispered. Marie nodded, her hand finding his. The sealed letter bore instructions for a private ritual of connection, words to be spoken, desires to be acknowledged, and truths to be shared. The black box contained an intimate token, a symbolic item representing secrecy and trust. Marie felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Miami had escalated the stakes from observation and challenge to the deepest level of emotional and physical intimacy. They began with the letter, reading aloud to each other. Every word was a confession of desire, trust, and the courage to embrace love despite past sorrows and societal expectations. Marie's voice wavered initially, then strengthened. Daniel mirrored her authenticity, articulating admiration, longing, and the depth of his commitment. The ritual was intimate, raw, and yet filled with a quiet elegance. Next, they reached for the black box. Inside was a delicate, handcrafted key. The note explained, "Trust is the key. Secrecy preserves desire. Together, unlock what endures." Daniel held Marie's hand as they took turns lifting the key, their touch deliberate, reinforcing the bond forged through all prior tests. Every movement, every gesture carried the weight of weeks of challenge, observation, and subtle seduction. Finally, the photograph invited reflection on legacy, the past, the present, and the future. They spoke aloud about moments of joy and sorrow, about love they had shared, and the desires that had driven their connection. Their words intertwined with subtle physical gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a brush of fingers, a lingering gaze. The city, though distant, had been watching for weeks, but here, in the final game, intimacy, secrecy, and love existed untouchable and sovereign. Lena appeared, stepping softly from the shadows. Her expression was inscrutable at first, then softened into a rare smile. "You have passed the final game," she said. "Desire, love, and secrecy have converged perfectly. Miami is tested, observed, and tempted, but your bond endures beyond the city's whispers. Marie exhaled, relief and triumph washing over her. Daniel embraced her gently, both radiating quiet victory and intimacy. They stepped onto the terrace, overlooking Miami at night. The city's lights stretched endlessly, alive with potential observers and secrets, but in this moment, Marie and Daniel's connection was untouchable. "We've survived every test," Marie said softly, her voice steady yet emotional. Daniel kissed her hand, their bond radiating warmth and resilience against the night. The ultimate game was over, and they had emerged victorious, their love, desire, and trust stronger than ever. The city may have tested them endlessly, but whispers of a new beginning lingered, one where desire, love, and secrecy would no longer be a game, but a life they could truly claim together. The morning sun spilled golden light across the mansion terrace. Marie sipped her coffee, her gaze drifting over the Miami skyline. The tests, the secret observations, the intricate games of desire and trust, they were behind them. For the first time in decades, she felt a profound calm, a freedom to simply be, without scrutiny. Daniel joined her, offering a soft smile and a hand that conveyed reassurance, warmth, and an unspoken promise. They had emerged together, stronger than ever. Their conversation turned naturally to the future. "We've survived the city's games," Daniel said, brushing her hand lightly. "Now, we can choose what our life looks like without tests, without observation." Marie smiled, the first real smile in weeks that wasn't shadowed by tension or uncertainty. Miami's glittering lights had been a theater of temptation and trust, but outside its scrutiny, life could finally be theirs. Marie decided to reclaim parts of her life long neglected. She spoke of hobbies abandoned, friends left behind, and the simple joys she had once loved: painting, garden walks, and late-night music. Daniel listened attentively, his presence both protective and encouraging. "We'll explore all of it," he promised. "Every joy, every passion. We'll live them fully, together." The sense of liberation was intoxicating, a stark contrast to the pressure-filled days of the ultimate game. They spent the afternoon exploring Miami, walking through quiet streets, small cafes, and sun-dappled parks. Marie laughed freely, a sound unburdened by fear, secrecy, or manipulation. Daniel's hand rested lightly on her back, his presence a constant reminder of trust and connection. The city that had once been a stage of challenges and temptations now felt alive with possibility, vibrant and welcoming instead of threatening. By evening, they arrived at a small rooftop overlooking the bay. The water shimmered with reflections of the city lights. Marie leaned against Daniel, her hand in his, and whispered softly, "All those games, all the tests, they were preparation for this. To claim life, to claim love, without fear." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "And we've earned it," he replied. Their intimacy was no longer a secret challenge. It was lived, open, and celebrated in private, far from the prying eyes of observers. That night, back in the mansion, they began a ritual of shared reflection. A candlelit dinner, soft music, and a journal where they documented their future dreams together. Every plan was a declaration of freedom and desire, a promise to each other that life would no longer be dictated by observation, secrecy, or tests. Marie felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Daniel mirrored it, his presence a constant source of warmth, desire, and support. As the night deepened, they stood on the terrace once more, the city quiet beneath them. Miami's lights sparkled like stars reflected on the bay. Marie whispered, "We survived the games, and now, everything is ours." Daniel kissed her hand, then drew her close in a warm embrace. The mansion felt like a sanctuary now, a place where love, trust, and desire were free to exist without constraint. The ultimate tests were over, and what remained was life itself, shared, unguarded, and endlessly full of possibility. The games may have ended, but whispers of adventure and discovery lingered, Miami's City of Lights held new opportunities for love, desire, and freedom that Marie and Daniel were ready to claim. The next morning, Miami's sun rose over the bay, casting a sparkling golden trail across the water. Marie and Daniel stepped out onto the terrace, energized by the sense of liberation. Today, no tests awaited, only life in its raw, beautiful form. Daniel turned to her with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Shall we explore the city without rules, without observers?" Marie laughed softly, a sound of pure joy. "Absolutely. Let's claim our freedom." Their first stop was a hidden art district downtown. Vibrant murals, sculptures, and street performances welcomed them. Marie's eyes sparkled with wonder as she examined colorful canvases, her fingers tracing textures on a sculpture. Daniel's hand brushed hers gently, reminding her of their connection amid the sensory delight of the city. For the first time, they moved freely through public spaces, their intimacy private yet unguarded, a stark contrast to the shadow of Miami's prior challenges. They stopped at a small cafe tucked into a quiet alley. Sunlight filtered through leafy branches, dappling their table. Over coffee, they talked about dreams long deferred, travel, music, and the small joys of ordinary life. Daniel listened intently, nodding, occasionally brushing Marie's hand in a gentle, intimate gesture. Every touch was spontaneous, untested, and natural, free from the tension of observation or scrutiny. By afternoon, they were on a yacht, cruising Biscayne Bay. The breeze tousled Marie's hair, the salt air invigorating. Daniel stood behind her, hands resting lightly on her shoulders as they gazed at the city's skyline from the water. The waves reflected the sun like liquid gold, and the city that had been a theater of challenges now shimmered as a playground of endless possibilities. Marie laughed freely, her voice unrestrained, a sound that carried over the water without inhibition. That evening, they explored a rooftop jazz bar, the soft music blending with the city's glow. Marie swayed gently with Daniel as they danced slowly, the intimate rhythm a celebration of freedom and desire. No tests, no observers, only the music, the lights, and the tangible warmth between them. The city's previous trials had sharpened their trust and desire. Now, they could indulge in it fully, without fear or hesitation. As the night deepened, they ventured to a secluded beach. Moonlight reflected on the water, casting a silvery glow. Marie's laughter mingled with the sound of waves as Daniel pulled her close, whispering soft affirmations of love and admiration. The sand beneath their feet, the wind in their hair, and the moonlight above created a perfect stage for desire, intimacy, and freedom, a stark contrast to the city's prior games. Finally, they returned to the mansion terrace, weary but exhilarated. Candles flickered softly as they shared a late-night snack, their laughter blending with the quiet hum of Miami below. Marie looked at Daniel with gratitude and longing. Every challenge, every test, every risk, it all led us here. To freedom, to desire, to us. Daniel smiled, brushing her hair from her face. And now, it's ours to live every day fully. The games may have ended, but Miami's City of Lights promised endless adventures, each one an opportunity to explore desire, love, and freedom without fear or restraint. The city lights of Miami glittered like 1,000 tiny fires, reflected in the calm waters of the bay. Marie and Daniel stepped out of their mansion, the night warm and fragrant with salt and city energy. "No plans tonight," Daniel said with a playful grin. "Just us, the city, and wherever desire takes us." Marie laughed, a sound full of anticipation and freedom. The absence of rules or tests made the air electric, charged with possibility. They wandered through the bustling streets of Miami, hand in hand, letting the neon lights guide them. Street performers danced and played music as they passed. Marie's eyes sparkled, her laughter blending with the city's rhythms. Daniel pulled her close, whispering compliments that made her blush. Every glance, every brush of skin against skin was natural, spontaneous, and unguarded, a stark contrast to the carefully measured gestures demanded by their previous challenges. A lively jazz club caught their attention, its music spilling onto the sidewalk. Without hesitation, they entered, finding themselves in a cozy, dimly lit space filled with candlelight and laughter. The saxophone's warm notes enveloped them as they found a small table by the stage. Daniel took Marie's hand and gently guided her into a slow dance. Their bodies swayed effortlessly to the rhythm, a perfect blend of desire, trust, and mutual admiration. Afterward, they escaped into the streets again, spontaneous and adventurous. They spotted a small food truck emitting the smell of sizzling seafood. Marie's eyes lit up. "Let's try it," she exclaimed. They shared plates of shrimp tacos and grilled fish, laughing at their messy fingers and playful attempts to feed each other without dropping food. The night was an unscripted dance, a celebration of freedom and living in the moment. They wandered toward a secluded rooftop overlooking the bay. The waves glistened in moonlight, and the city sparkled below like scattered diamonds. Daniel draped a light shawl over Marie's shoulders as she shivered in the warm breeze. They leaned together against the railing, the city lights reflecting in their eyes. "No challenges. No observers," Marie whispered. "Just us." Daniel kissed her forehead, their closeness a testament to desire nurtured through trust and adventure. Spurred by impulse, Daniel suggested a small walk along the water's edge. Barefoot, they felt the cool sand beneath their feet. Marie laughed as waves lapped at their ankles. Their playful touches, whispers, and glances blended desire and affection seamlessly. Every movement was a dance of spontaneity, an unguarded intimacy that only freedom could inspire. As the night deepened, they returned to the mansion, still flushed with excitement. Candlelight illuminated the terrace, and soft music played in the background. They sat side by side, savoring the memories of the night. Marie leaned her head against Daniel's shoulder. This is what life feels like when you're free," she murmured. Daniel wrapped an arm around her, their intimacy no longer a test, but a living, breathing connection. Miami's nights held infinite possibilities, but even in freedom, desire and trust could be tested in unexpected ways, ready to challenge the heart once more. The following afternoon, Miami's streets were alive with energy, tourists, street performers, and the hum of traffic creating a rhythm that seemed to pulse through the city itself. Marie and Daniel strolled hand in hand, basking in the warm sun, enjoying the sense of liberation that had defined the past few weeks. But as they turned a corner, a familiar figure appeared. Lena, the orchestrator of all previous games, standing casually yet poised, her eyes sharp and unreadable. Marie froze for a moment, a mixture of surprise and curiosity flickering across her face. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand, instinctively protective but also intrigued. Lena smiled faintly. "Even when free," she said softly, "the city presents opportunities and small challenges." Her presence alone carried authority and subtle tension, reminding them that freedom could still be layered with intrigue. Without further explanation, Lena gestured toward a nearby cafe tucked into a quiet alley. "Sit. Observe. Respond naturally. Desire and trust are revealed in unexpected encounters." Marie exchanged a glance with Daniel. No longer fearful of observation or manipulation, they agreed silently, curiosity and playfulness replacing tension. This was a new type of test, one that blended subtle intrigue with emotional awareness. Inside the cafe, Lena ordered drinks for all three of them and sat across the table. She spoke in soft, almost cryptic phrases about choices, trust, and unspoken desire. "Sometimes," she said, "the smallest gestures reveal the deepest truths. Watch, respond, and you will know yourself better." Marie listened attentively, while Daniel's gaze remained protective but open. Every subtle glance, movement, or gesture from Lena became part of an unspoken dialogue, a miniature game of observation and trust. Lena's next instruction was subtle yet disarming. Share a moment of desire or longing that no one has seen before. Let it exist only here in trust. Marie and Daniel looked at each other, understanding immediately. Their previous experiences had forged a bond strong enough to allow vulnerability without fear. Marie smiled shyly, then whispered a playful memory, a private moment of longing from one of their past adventures. Daniel responded with equal intimacy, and the cafe seemed to shrink around them as their words carried weight beyond the ordinary. The subtle test continued as Lena encouraged a silent, tactile challenge. Marie brushed Daniel's hand lightly while they laughed quietly, a playful, unspoken game of touch and response. Lena observed, her expression inscrutable, noting the natural balance between desire, trust, and spontaneity. Marie realized that, even without orchestrated challenges, Miami could present subtle scenarios that revealed the depth of connection between two people. Finally, Lena rose, leaving a small token on the table, a miniature charm in the shape of a key. A reminder, she said softly, that even in freedom, desire and trust unlock deeper parts of life. She exited as quietly as she had appeared, leaving Marie and Daniel to reflect. The charm was more than symbolic. It represented the fluidity of their life, the constant interplay between curiosity, trust, and intimacy. As they stepped back into the streets of Miami, the city felt different now, not a stage of tests, but a place of infinite small adventures, each capable of deepening their connection. Marie slipped her hand into Daniel's. "Even when unexpected encounters arise, we navigate them together," she said softly. Daniel smiled, pressing her hand to his chest. "Always," he replied. Their trust, desire, and playfulness had matured into a seamless partnership, able to handle intrigue without fear. Miami's City of Lights would continue to offer adventures and small tests, but Marie and Daniel now faced them not as participants in games, but as partners navigating life, desire, and trust together. It was a warm, breezy evening when Marie noticed a small envelope tucked beneath the mansion's front gate. Its presence was subtle, yet deliberate. She picked it up, feeling the delicate weight of mystery in her fingers. The envelope bore no name, only a faint emblem resembling a crescent moon. Daniel appeared beside her, raising an eyebrow. "Another game?" he asked half-jokingly. Marie shook her head with a smile. "Maybe not a game, maybe an adventure." Inside the envelope was a single card. "Tonight, the city holds a secret for you. Trust, desire, and spontaneity will guide the way. Follow the path where curiosity leads." Marie's eyes widened with excitement. Daniel smiled, gripping her hand. "It's been a while since something felt unpredictable," he said. "Shall we?" Marie nodded, her pulse quickening with the thrill of an unknown adventure. The instructions guided them to a quiet marina where a sleek, unmarked boat waited. Its polished deck gleamed in the moonlight, the water reflecting the city's glittering skyline. A small note on the helm read, "Tonight, your choices define the adventure. Every decision will reveal desire, trust, and creativity." Marie inhaled deeply, feeling the surge of excitement that only true spontaneity could inspire. Once aboard, the boat's engine hummed softly as it glided into Biscayne Bay. The city lights shimmered on the water, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Daniel leaned close to Marie, brushing her hair from her face. "Whatever this adventure is, we'll navigate it together," he said. Marie smiled, the trust between them radiating as intensely as the moonlight across the waves. The first task was subtle. A small pouch of colored powders accompanied the boat's notes. "Paint your desires," it read, "in the sky above the water." Marie and Daniel laughed softly, understanding immediately that this was both playful and symbolic. As the boat drifted, they gently tossed powders into the night air, watching the colors swirl and blend with moonlight and reflections. Their gestures were spontaneous, intimate, and entirely shared, a creative expression of desire and freedom. Next, a soft box at the boat's helm opened, revealing a pair of small, intricately carved tokens. "Choose one for yourself, one for the one you trust," the note read. Marie picked a delicate silver token, Daniel a matching gold. The act was simple yet symbolic, representing trust, connection, and the ability to make spontaneous choices together. The city, in its glowing distance, seemed to approve silently. As the night deepened, the boat drifted toward a private cove, hidden from the city's eyes. Gentle waves lapped against the hull, and a soft breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. Marie leaned against Daniel, whispering, "This feels like magic, like the city itself is creating this adventure for us." Daniel kissed her temple, his hand resting lightly on her back. Their spontaneity, trust, and shared desire had transformed an ordinary evening into a deeply intimate and creative experience. Finally, the boat slowly returned to the marina. As they disembarked, another small envelope awaited them, this one containing only a simple message: "Adventure is endless when desire, trust, and creativity are your guides." Marie tucked it into her pocket with a smile, realizing that Miami had transformed from a city of tests into a city of endless possibilities, each adventure a chance to explore freedom, intimacy, and love. Even after surviving every orchestrated test, Miami promised endless adventures, each carrying a whisper of desire, intimacy, and freedom waiting to be discovered. Marie and Daniel sat on the edge of the boat, their legs dangling just above the water as the moonlight reflected like molten silver across Biscayne Bay. The previous adventures had been playful, spontaneous, and intimate, but tonight, the air carried a new weight, an emotional depth neither had anticipated. Marie traced a finger across the water surface, whispering, "I never imagined freedom could feel like this, limitless, yet so profound." Daniel smiled softly, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "It's the horizon of everything we've built, the trust, the desire, the truth." A soft breeze swept across the bay, carrying the faint scent of salt and night-blooming flowers from the nearby shoreline. Daniel reached for a small, leather-bound journal he had brought along, suggesting they write down their reflections on the night. "Every adventure, every touch, every glance, let's capture it. So it's ours, just ours." Marie nodded, feeling the intimacy of the act, a private testament to shared experiences layered with desire, trust, and emotional depth. Marie began to write, her words flowing freely, recounting their adventures, the unexpected encounters, and the growing intimacy that had deepened beyond physical desire. Daniel wrote alongside her, describing the trust and admiration he felt for her resilience, her spontaneity, and her capacity for joy. Each word was a declaration of love and desire, recorded not for the world, but for each other, strengthening the emotional foundation of their connection. After journaling, Daniel gently took Marie's hand. "Let's see how this freedom feels in its purest form," he whispered. Their eyes met, a mixture of longing, trust, and shared desire reflecting in their gaze. Without words, they leaned closer, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the soft night air. The city lights, the water, the moon, all faded as the intensity of their connection took center stage. Daniel led Marie to lie back on a soft blanket spread across the deck, the boat gently rocking with the water's movement. The moon cast silver light across her hair and face, highlighting the beauty of every line and curve, every expression of desire and trust. He traced his fingers along her arm, eliciting a quiet laugh. The intimacy between them was no longer just physical. It was emotional, creative, and deeply liberating, a culmination of weeks of games, adventures, and unexpected encounters. The night stretched on, each movement, touch, and whispered word enhancing their connection. They shared stories, secrets, and desires never spoken aloud before, weaving an emotional tapestry that bound them closer than ever. Miami's lights twinkled distantly, but on the boat, time seemed to stop, leaving only the two of them and the horizon of feelings they had built together. Finally, as the first hints of dawn tinged the sky with soft pink and gold, Marie rested her head against Daniel's chest. This is what life should feel like," she murmured. Daniel kissed her hair, holding her gently. "Freedom, desire, trust, they've all led to this. And it's only the beginning." Miami's cityscape sparkled behind them, alive with possibility, but they had discovered a new horizon, one defined by emotional depth, spontaneity, and love that transcended age, games, and expectation. The sun had just risen over Miami, painting the skyline in warm hues of orange and pink. Marie and Daniel strolled along the bay walk, the soft sounds of waves mingling with the distant hum of the city. Everything felt tranquil, yet in the shadows of a small, hidden alley, a hand-drawn map awaited them, tucked inside a folded envelope. Its appearance was sudden, almost playful, and carried the promise of curiosity. "Another adventure?" Marie asked with a grin. Daniel laughed, taking her hand. "Seems Miami isn't done with surprises yet." The map led them to an unmarked studio tucked above a small cafe. The door opened to a softly lit space, filled with canvases, paints, and sculptures. A note on the wall read, "Creativity, desire, and trust combine here. Express yourselves freely." Marie's eyes sparkled with excitement. Daniel's lips curved into a smile. They stepped in, instantly transported from the city streets into a private realm of artistic intimacy. Their first task was subtle yet deeply intimate: create a visual representation of each other using the materials provided. Marie painted Daniel in broad, vibrant strokes, capturing both his physical presence and the warmth he radiated. Daniel, in turn, sculpted a small figurine that symbolized Marie's strength, desire, and playful spirit. Every brushstroke and carving was an act of observation, trust, and creative expression, an unspoken dialogue that deepened their connection. As they worked, soft music filled the studio, and the air seemed charged with unspoken desire. Daniel gently brushed Marie's hair back as she leaned over her canvas. Marie laughed softly, returning the touch with a playful flick of her paintbrush. Each interaction was spontaneous, intimate, and revealing. Miami's city lights outside now seemed distant. Inside, the adventure of creativity had become a private, deeply personal playground. A hidden compartment in the studio revealed a small set of keys and an accompanying note. "One key unlocks desire, the other unlocks trust. Choose wisely together." Marie and Daniel exchanged a glance, understanding immediately that this was a playful, symbolic challenge. Together, they picked up the keys, feeling the weight of choice and the power of shared decision-making. It wasn't about right or wrong, it was about connection, spontaneity, and trust. The final part of the challenge was a collaborative painting of their imagined future, combining elements from their previous adventures and desires. They added sweeping brushstrokes of color, symbolic tokens, and abstract representations of love, freedom, and spontaneity. The process was as much emotional as it was creative. By the time they finished, the studio was filled with their laughter, whispered comments, and the quiet satisfaction of intimacy expressed without boundaries. As they stepped back to admire their creation, the city outside gleamed with sunlight reflecting off the bay. Marie turned to Daniel, her eyes soft with gratitude and desire. "Even when the challenges are playful, they show us who we really are together," she whispered. Daniel pulled her into a gentle embrace. And no adventure, planned or spontaneous, could ever change that. Miami's streets and lights had become the backdrop for a partnership rooted in trust, desire, and shared spontaneity, proving that even unanticipated challenges could strengthen their bond. Even as Miami offered endless freedom, new adventures awaited, each designed to push boundaries of desire, trust, and creativity in ways they never imagined. The evening air in Miami was warm and fragrant, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and sea salt. Marie and Daniel followed a narrow, unmarked path that snaked between high hedges, leading them into a secluded courtyard no one outside seemed to know existed. At the entrance, a wrought iron gate swung open silently, revealing a lush secret garden illuminated by fairy lights and lanterns. "It feels magical," Marie whispered, her eyes wide with awe. Daniel grinned. Miami never ceases to surprise. Inside, a circular stone platform held a set of velvet cushions arranged in a pattern that suggested ritual and intimacy. A single note lay atop the central cushion. "Tonight, your choices will reveal the strength of desire, trust, and connection. Follow your instincts." Marie glanced at Daniel. "Instincts are all we have now," she said softly, a thrill of anticipation running through her. Daniel squeezed her hand, sharing the unspoken agreement that whatever awaited, they would face it together. The first task was subtle yet provocative, a series of small cards scattered across the platform, each prompting them to share a desire, memory, or secret they had never spoken aloud. Marie picked a card that asked her to describe a moment of longing from her youth. She spoke softly, revealing a mixture of vulnerability and desire. Daniel responded with one of his own, sharing a private wish he had held since before their adventures began. The garden became a space of unspoken intimacy, where trust and desire intertwined naturally. Next, they encountered a small fountain at the garden center. Floating on its surface were tiny origami boats, each containing a single word: trust, desire, freedom, connection. Daniel picked up a boat marked Trust and handed it to Marie. She placed it gently in the water, watching it drift. Then she selected Desire and handed it to him. Their silent exchange spoke volumes, each choice a reflection of the bond they had cultivated, their shared adventures now distilled into simple, symbolic acts. A soft breeze stirred, carrying petals from nearby flowers across their path. Daniel took Marie's hand and led her to a small stone bench hidden among roses. They sat side by side, the intimacy of the moment deepened by silence. Without words, Daniel brushed a stray strand of hair from Marie's face, and she leaned into his touch. Each gesture, however small, reinforced desire, trust, and the connection they had nurtured through countless adventures and spontaneous encounters. The final challenge of the night was a mirror framed with ivy and soft lantern light. A note read, "Look into the reflection and see the desires you have fulfilled and the ones still waiting." Marie and Daniel stood before the mirror together, their reflections merging into one. They saw desire, trust, freedom, and creativity intertwined, a vivid testament to their journey. Marie smiled, realizing that the city's hidden challenges had led them to discover emotional intimacy as profound as physical desire. As they exited the garden, the first hints of dawn tinged the Miami skyline. The city awakened below them, alive with energy, but the secret garden remained untouched by time, a private sanctuary for trust, desire, and connection. Marie looked at Daniel, her eyes soft but sparkling with gratitude. "Every adventure, every spontaneous challenge, has brought us closer than I imagined possible," she whispered. Daniel pulled her close. "And this is only the beginning. Miami's surprises never end." Even as they returned to the city, Miami promised new experiences, each capable of testing desire, trust, and intimacy in ways only the night could reveal. That evening, the Miami skyline blazed with color as the sun dipped below the horizon. Marie and Daniel arrived at a sleek rooftop venue high above the bustling streets. Guests mingled in elegant attire, masks concealing identities. A note from the evening's mysterious host read, "Tonight, desire and trust will meet spectacle. Dance, flirt, and reveal your connection without fear." Marie adjusted her mask, her pulse quickening with anticipation. Daniel smiled, taking her hand. "Ready to show the world what we've discovered together?" The music was sultry and rhythmic, a hypnotic mix of jazz and modern beats. Marie and Daniel moved through the crowd, their hands occasionally brushing, smiles exchanged under masked faces. Each step, each glance, was an exercise in subtle intimacy, a test of their ability to maintain connection amid distractions. The thrill of performing trust and desire in public heightened their connection, blending playfulness with a deeper awareness of one another. A small game was announced by the host. Pairs were asked to find hidden clues around the rooftop that required cooperation, trust, and playful strategy. Marie's eyes sparkled. "Another spontaneous adventure," she said. Daniel nodded, excitement evident in his expression. They darted between sculptures, fountains, and lounges, following cryptic hints that tested their coordination, communication, and subtle flirtation in public. Laughter and whispered jokes flowed naturally between them, heightening both desire and trust. One clue led them to a private balcony overlooking Biscayne Bay. The wind teased Marie's hair as Daniel held her close, whispering subtle affirmations. The challenge was simple yet intimate. Share a secret desire without being overheard. Marie leaned into Daniel, her voice soft but confident, revealing a playful longing. Daniel mirrored her openness, sharing a desire that deepened their trust. Even in public, their intimacy remained unbreakable, fueled by mutual respect and longing. The final part of the rooftop challenge was a dance under a cascade of fairy lights strung across the terrace. The music swelled, and Marie and Daniel let themselves be swept away. Every movement, every touch, every shared smile was a silent testament to the bond they had built. Other guests faded into the background as their bodies and desires synchronized, revealing a love that transcended age, circumstance, and the need for validation. As the night deepened, the host approached them with a final token, a small golden charm shaped like intertwined hands. For those who navigate desire and trust with courage, the note read. Marie accepted it, her fingers brushing Daniel's. The charm symbolized their journey, spontaneous adventures, emotional honesty, creative expression, and physical intimacy, all experienced in Miami's vibrant, unpredictable spaces. Finally, as the city lights shimmered below, Marie rested her head against Daniel's chest. Every adventure, every challenge, every test, they've all led us here, she whispered. Daniel kissed her hair gently. And yet, the horizon keeps expanding. Miami will always have surprises for us as long as we trust each other. The rooftop, the masks, the challenges, they had proven that desire, trust, and spontaneity could flourish even under the eyes of the world. Even as their adventures neared a pinnacle, Miami whispered one final secret, a test of ultimate intimacy, desire, and trust that would define their journey forever. The night in Miami shimmered with anticipation. Marie and Daniel arrived at a private penthouse terrace, far above the city's glowing skyline. The air was warm, scented with night-blooming flowers, and the soft hum of the city below set a hypnotic rhythm. A single golden envelope lay at the center of the terrace. Marie picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside, a note read, "This is the final adventure. Every choice, every touch, every whisper will reveal the depth of trust, desire, and love you've cultivated. Are you ready?" Daniel held Marie's hand and led her to a circular platform lined with soft silk cushions. Lanterns floated gently around them, reflecting golden light on their faces. "Every adventure led us here," he murmured. "Now it's just us and everything we've learned about each other." Marie nodded, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. The final challenge was not a game or a puzzle. It was a culmination of every bond, every shared desire, every leap of trust they had taken together. The first part of the test was vulnerability. A series of cards lay scattered on the cushions, each prompting them to share the deepest desires, fears, and fantasies they had kept hidden. Marie picked one that read, "Reveal the longing you've never shared." She took a deep breath and spoke softly, her voice trembling but clear, describing a yearning for connection and love that had long been silent. Daniel listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers, then responded with equal honesty. Every confession, every whisper, deepened their bond, revealing layers of trust that no previous adventure could have uncovered. Next came the dance of desire. The soft notes of a violin filled the terrace as Daniel took Marie's hand. They moved slowly, letting the rhythm guide them, their bodies in perfect sync. Every step, every touch, was a reflection of weeks of connection, spontaneous adventures, and shared intimacy. The city below was a glittering ocean of light, but their world had shrunk to the terrace, to the intimacy of this final, transformative night. Finally, the ultimate test, a small, crystal-clear fountain in the center of the platform. Floating inside were tiny golden hearts. A note read, "Choose one for each other. Let it symbolize trust, desire, and love fully shared." Marie and Daniel picked hearts simultaneously, their hands brushing. The gesture, simple yet profound, symbolized the culmination of every choice, every touch, and every whispered word they had exchanged over the weeks. Desire, trust, and emotional intimacy now fused into a complete, unbreakable bond. As they held the hearts, the city's lights reflected across the water and glass of the penthouse. Marie rested her head against Daniel's chest. Every adventure, every test, it all led to this moment, she whispered. Daniel kissed her temple softly. And now, we define what love and desire truly mean for us and for the future we choose together. Miami's skylines stretched endlessly below, a city of possibility, adventure, and unspoken desire. But Marie and Daniel had found the ultimate horizon, each other. And now, dear viewer, the journey doesn't end here. What would you do if you were given the freedom, desire, and trust to create your ultimate adventure? Comment below. Would you take the leap into the unknown, just like Marie and Daniel? Share your own story. Imagine your horizon, and remember, every moment of courage, every act of trust, could lead to the adventure of a lifetime. Your story begins now.